30 years old, at the prime of life and in top gear.
Dinosaurs. Mammals expanded into all the niches left by the reptiles. By 1148 on our Earth Day, bats were hunting for flying insects. Four minutes later, there were 10-meter-long baleen whales sifting for fish and crustaceans. The last few seconds of our day, and the rules of the planet are established. The Earth supports an array of species, adapting to change by evolution. The tactics are long established. Attack the weakest prey, scavenge carrion, open up new niches, save energy and invest it in breeding. The forests, lakes, rivers and wetlands were as they are now. Each one has a natural population control in the carrying capacity of the habitat and each level of the food chain. Life would have continued like this until now, but for one thing. The human subspecies first appeared in Africa around 100,000 years ago. An omnivore that could harvest wild plants or hunt large prey using weapons and teamwork. "40,000 years ago, the humans had reached Europe, hunting reindeer and avoiding the risk of injury by stampeding them over cliffs. Animal predators picked off the old and the weak. The human hunters wiped out the strongest animals as they led their herds to destruction. True overkill. A large, complex brain meant that humans could now adapt to change immediately by evolving behavior. Learning and experience were inherited as well as genes. As the Earth's human population rose to 100,000, one casualty was our nearest relative. After 10,000 years of coexistence, Neanderthal man became extinct, the loser in an evolutionary intelligence test. The planet was locked in ice. The northern latitudes were recolonized just 15,000 years ago. Even now, Europe and North America have far fewer species than the tropics, which changed and developed over millions of years. During the Ice Age, the sea level dropped by 80 meters, and humans walked from Asia into the Americas.
Hi.
In the rich American rainforests, there were plants with nerve poisons, developed as a defense against the myriad insects. Adding distilled plant toxins to their armory, humans attacked species that were safe from animal predators and drove them to extinction. Rainforest plants also produce fruit to attract monkeys, bats, and birds, which then disperse the seeds in their droppings. Humans were part of this community of plants and animals with its mix of conflict, protection, and exploitation. Rainforest species are very diverse, but spread out over wide areas. Planting a crop in a clearing or keeping animals in a village overcame the problem. The clearings were small and lasted just one growing season. The crops were forest plants. Growing them was easier than searching for wild food. Enter a new type of human, the farmer. Rainforest scavengers were the easiest animals for humans to control. 10,000 years ago, jungle fowl and their eggs fed the villagers of Southeast Asia. Forest pigs were domesticated by a reliable supply of scraps. With a protected food supply, the human population reached 4 million. On the riverbanks of the Middle East, animal muscle power took arable farming into a new era, with new plant strains, irrigation, and plowed fields. Plants formed 70% of the diet. The human's low position on the food chain meant a large carrying capacity. Long hours of hard work by farmers now supported soldiers, scribes, priests, and emperors with a different view of nature. Rome became the center of European civilization, but across the planet, humans had developed into a wide diversity of cultures. In the 13th century, China was the most technological civilization on Earth. Its farmers had floating dams that deposited rich silt onto the fields as natural fertilizer. The Chinese invented the iron plow and printed manuals of philosophy. In Central America, slash-and-burn farmers had become sophisticated agriculturalists. The Mayans supported 2,000 people on each square mile of poor soil. Maize was the mainstay of a varied diet, grown on terraces to prevent soil erosion. They protected their plants by intercropping and protected the soil by crop rotation. But 1,200 years ago, the civilization collapsed. After a millennium of expansion, the farmers had overstretched the carrying capacity of their lands and broken the law of ecology. In the Andes, the Incas were more successful. Standing 2,000 feet above sea level, Machu Picchu was part of an empire covering modern Bolivia and Peru, linked by paved roads. Inca farmers were the masters of agriculture on marginal lands. 500 years ago, they supported a population of 16 million. But a new type of human was heading their way. The conquistadors believed their mastery should be of the entire world. In 1493, Pope Alexander VI declared that half the world belonged to Portugal and half to Spain, as of course he assumed was his right. For the Aztecs of Mexico, this meant genocide. – 140,000 people lived in the city of Tenochtitlan. In 1521, it was razed to the ground. In 1520, there were 25 million Aztecs. By 1600, there were just 1 million left. Human diversity was declining under the weight of the cross. This destruction was not just about culture and religion, or even greed. The European population had increased steadily to 100 million. It needed more resources. The population was centered in towns, most of which were overcrowded and polluted. The wealth of towns drew raw materials from the countryside. Sheep replaced food crops as England became the world leader in wool. "14 million sheep turned the downs into pasture, but brought little benefit to the rural population. Wood was the universal building material. Each new house took 12 trees. Oak woodland supports a huge range of plants and animals. It's one of the richest northern habitats. By the end of the 17th century, nearly all the medieval forests of England had been felled, with no replanting. A big oak could weigh 2 tons, but half that weight would be lost, turning it into timber. A ship of the line took 6,000 loads of timber. Each one was over a ton. With the loss in processing, a ship like HMS Victory could take 1,300 tons of oak. The Victory was built with English oak, elm and fir, and Danzig oak from Poland. By 1775, the American colonies had already been stripped of tall pines suitable for masts. The deforestation we now see in rainforests happened first in Europe. And it's been happening in Brazil since the 17th century. After logging came plantations producing sugar, coffee and cocoa for the European luxury market. Biological diversity became monoculture. Local plants and animals became weeds and pests. Yet plantations are always vulnerable to nature. The simpler temperate forests of North America were easier for the Europeans. They were just like the Europe now destroyed, but much bigger. The time was ripe for war. Once the British had removed the French from Canada, the focus moved to America.
Pick and prize. Pick ready.
Here, the colonialists fought back, defending a huge resource base from British taxation.
Polio, balance, right about, base.
Having won their country, the new Americans set about exploiting it. Sea otters, beavers, fox and seals came within their sights. They were decimated for the fur trade by the new conquistadors. There were 5 billion passenger pigeons in North America when the Europeans arrived. They bred in New England and flew south each autumn, gathering in huge flocks. Pigeons were easy meat. A single county in Michigan slaughtered 7.5 million birds in one season. The fall from billions to extinction in the wild took less than 100 years. "60 million buffalo roamed the plains in 1830, free-ranging, natural, harvestable meat. By the end of the century, they numbered only thousands. After the conquistadors came the mechanics, intent on harnessing the energy of the earth for human use. Watermills were amongst the earliest energy converters, starting the industrialization of the planet rolling. Rivers are a very reliable source of strong motive power that can be channeled using cogs and belts. Watermills were first used to grind corn and other cereals. There were 5,000 listed in the Doomsday Book. As mechanization increased, water power was used to drive machines for sawing wood, making paper, or hammering metal in forges, to make tools for the mechanics. Harnessing the power of the wind moved energy generation away from rivers. Windmills allowed local food processing, adding value to crops. A 19th century windmill could grind up to 150 kilograms of grain per hour. But there's only one way to directly tap the sun's energy, and it's billions of years old. The photochemical process within plant chlorophyll. It builds carbon dioxide gas into sugars and finally cellulose, the basis of wood. Burning wood releases the energy that was once sunlight as heat and light. It's a good fuel, transportable but heavy and in demand for timber. It's the water in wood that gives it weight. Packed tightly so it burns with little oxygen, the wood is purified to dry carbon. Light, portable, charcoal. Building the charcoal mound on a woodland hearth takes about a day. It will burn for 3. Charcoal fueled the iron industry. A blast furnace consumed 750 acres of trees a year. By 1690, the wood was running out. In America, forests stretch from New York to the Mississippi, enough to provide the fuel and building materials for the American Industrial Revolution. As the machines crossed the states, the trees came down. A steam engine burned a ton of wood every 12 miles. The track it ran on took more. Forests were decimated to feed the iron horse. In 1860, the railroad stretched 53,000 miles and used almost 500 million cubic feet of wood. In Europe, the trees had already gone to build workshops and warships. A new form of carbon energy was needed, and it was found deep underground. The compressed trees of the great Carboniferous forests now existed as coal. Coal burning released tons of carbon dioxide gas and produced acid rain, but it sidestepped an energy crisis. Steam engines appeared in every factory. They worked round the clock, and there was plenty of cheap labor to serve them. Coal even provided gas, a light, to lengthen the working day. 170 years ago, humans made the Earth unique. Even when it faced away from the sun, it gave off light. Peppered moths existed in two forms, black and white, but as the grime increased, the white ones lost the advantage of camouflage. Within 50 years, 95% of moths were the black form. They could merge with the industrial grime. If the conquistadors believed man should dominate nature, the mechanics provided the tools to move humans beyond natural law. Mechanized farming increased human use of the carrying capacity. And stimulated population growth. The British population doubled in 50 years. Then 50% more land was taken by farms. In America, the traditional lands of the Native Americans were being opened up. A natural source of meat was replaced by domestic cattle, animals a white man could manage, and a Sioux couldn't hunt. Humans were climbing the food chain in millions. The mechanization of the North created a huge demand for cheap raw materials. The British took over India. They built railways, roads, ports, and a civil service to cream off 40% of India's timber, minerals, spices, cotton. Plantations changed habitats around the world, creating wealth for colonial powers. The Victorian lady could wear materials from all over the world, from silk to whalebone. Her damage to the environment was suffered by someone else. The Victorians created a culture of manufacturing powered by cheap fossil fuels, of worldwide consumption, and of transport as the key to success. This is the legacy of the mechanics. The transport revolution had an enormous impact on some wild animals. With smoking and freezing, it increased the market for fish, the last great wild hunt. Around the British coast, mackerel, herring, cod and plaice came under pressure. Understanding the dynamics of a wild population is much more difficult than harvesting a crop. Fortunately, fish breed in huge numbers and mature quickly. Sailing further from their home ports, the latter-day conquistadors could always find new ground. But by 1890, plaice was locally extinct, and by the 1920s, the herring fishery was in terminal decline. Whales are the worst kind of crop. 40 million years without serious predators meant they bred very slowly to match the death rate. Whalers killed 3,000 right whales a year for meat, whalebone bristles, and most importantly, oil. But just as a whale oil crisis threatened to fundamentally change fuel use, it was sidestepped by a steam pump in the woodlands of Pennsylvania. Like coal, oil is a store of impure carbon locked up outside the carbon cycle. Crude oil is a mixture containing fuel oil for burning, light oil and gases for lighting. But the greatest light show was to come. Electricity is atomic energy, the effect of excited electrons. To harness it was an amazing achievement. Electricity drives every cell, from algae to the human brain. But it can only be produced from other energy forms, from the breakdown of food in animals, the movement of turbines by water, or the burning of coal or oil. If Edison had invented a solar panel to power the bulb, the world would be a very different place. As it was, coal bore the brunt, and with each ton burnt came more air pollution. The 20th century dawned with the human race in another jam. Over 1 million horses lived in London alone, distributing goods and bringing raw materials from the countryside. Transport was vital to city life, and horses were inadequate. Internal combustion was a revelation. The horse was replaced by a small, tireless explosion chamber that drove 16 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. There was a lot of smoke, but that didn't matter. Oil became the key fuel. Keeping it cheap for everyone was vital. In 1914, 80% of London's goods traffic was still horse-drawn. Elsewhere, technological change was faster. The First World War pitched human life against high explosive. 8.5 million soldiers died. With a ground war fed with human flesh, the petrol engines had new uses in aircraft and tanks. The world would never be the same. The war machine was turned to domestic production, and the car gave people freedom to go where they liked. World War II was a fast-moving techno-war. Oil was a target, science was a weapon. U-boats expose the British Empire's global carrying capacity. American fleets crossed the Pacific. Europeans fought in jungles. Bombing killed 40,000 people in Hamburg. And the war ended with a demonstration of human science. For the first time, the atmosphere had a new component, strontium-90. Science had ended the war. It was the modern panacea. Nuclear power generation was pushed forward in the 50s. It came with added Cold War deterrent value, and the waste was hidden away. Radiation is fundamental and literally universal, with a timescale to match. 40 years on, the prospect of waste that will be dangerous for 25,000 years is daunting. Most nuclear stations are already looking dated. Nuclear power was on stream before we knew how to handle the waste. Wartime science transformed post-war society, producing plastics, pharmaceuticals, and pesticides. Plastics are very useful materials, but totally unnatural, new to the planet, and immune to its decaying effects. Europeans fighting a jungle war needed help from the chemists. Pesticides fought the malarial mosquitoes. They were as dangerous as enemy action. DDT is a powerful poison. Very effective against insects, it turned out to be carcinogenic in humans. Pesticide production has increased to 30 times the 1945 level, but only 10% reaches its target. In the long term, pesticides will fail. 25 of the 36 species of cotton pests are now immune to DDT. Attacking a biological problem with chemicals simply puts resilient, fast-breeding species under a new selection pressure, which stimulates evolution. Eventually, immunity is bound to develop, and the final casualties may be bird and mammal predators at the top of the food chain. Modern agriculture is chemical-based, high input, high impact. Farmers now cultivate 11% of the Earth's surface to feed a new type of human, the consumer. Agriculture is the reverse of evolution. It has reduced the range of species until 90% of human food comes from just 20 species of plant. Our use of natural resources can be staggering. Paper is just one example. Worldwide, 200 million tons of paper are used each year. Each night, the world's presses print 250 million newspapers. They are delivered to us through the night by some of the biggest companies on Earth. It's a one-way system from forest to front door, and there's no equivalent to return yesterday's paper once it's been read. The one-way system can affect humans too. In Africa, national debts total 3 times the value of exports. So cash crops replace food. Shelled groundnuts make up half the Gambia's export earnings. Groundnut oil adds a further quarter. But the value of groundnut oil on the international market dropped by 60% between 1975 and 1987. Sesame is a much better crop. West African rainfall has dropped by half, but sesame is drought tolerant. Its seed produces oil as a cash crop for the local market, generating a local economy. The waste husks make good animal fodder, reducing the impact of grazing on the land, so the villagers benefit as well. Worldwide, farming ecology has changed. Force feeding means a chick reaches adult weight at 42 days, not the natural 84. The markets keep prices low, so the only responses are to cover a wider area and risk turning it into semi-desert, or increase intensity. 25% of world grain production feeds cattle that no longer graze. Between 1960 and 1980, the world cow population doubled, surpassing even the human growth rate. The modern world is now dominated by our subspecies. Humans numbered 1 billion in 1825, 2 billion in 1925, 3 in 1960, 4 in 1975, 5 in 88, and we're heading for 6. It's a steepening curve with 95% of the increase in the south. A big family is an insurance for old age, but like the Mayans, people here are living beyond the carrying capacity. How does that feel?
Man mangi tudd Alaaji Kan mangi juddoo Dingaraay may alkaali bi man mbéy mooy suma métier béykat laa.
ay ba ko yow kay wol
ma am naa fas yu may béyee te gerte laa gën di béy ak dugub bari na teqa lool ndax fi mu nekk nii daf am booy ji bu commencé sax yi dañ ko lekk ay sax dañu ñëw di ko lekk te duñ am luñ ko garbalee ndax suuf bi fi mu nekk nii amatu doole engrais bi dafa ñëw seer bi engrais daan nañu amal njëriñ tuuti suuf bi place soo ko defee mu baax waaye fi mu nekk nii suuf bi amul doole mënatuñoo jënd engrais dëkk bi li fi bëggoon di ñëw ci nit sax mënatu fee ñëw ñu bari sax jóge ko nañ fi dem te dëkk bi dëkk bu mag la bu cosaane ci réew mi ci la bokk waaye ñu bari mënatuñ fee ñëw ni jafe-jafe ndox.
man Alaaji Kan mooy sama jëkkër am naa fukki doom sama doom ju mujj ji 9 weer la xam njëriñam xanaa buñ jàngee loolu ci njëriñ li ñu ngi jàng de am na nag ñu paas waaye li ñu ci gën a gëtën nag moo di xamuñ dimbal xam naa ne njaboot moom njëriñ la bu fekkee ne jàng na ñu ngi ci njàng mi waaye nag dimbal li mu ne moo ñu jaaxal.
Right. Now, what is the meaning of HCF? Yes, Bauka?
highest common factor.
Good. Highest common factor. Clap for him. Very good. Good.
Dingra primary school la jàngee maa ngi jàng ci school bi English maa ngi am fukki at ak ñett maa ngi jàng ci school bi English Maths Science Social Study play football bëgg naa liggéey bëgg naa suma wàccee kay di liggéey ci ba dëkk mag yi mel ni Banjul kay di dimbale suma waajur yi suñu jamono bi ci jamono bi yomb laay nekk.
There are a lot of factors in the population crisis, but it's certainly stimulated by external development. These people aren't wantonly destroying their world, but it's changing too fast for them. Rainfall is declining, soil erosion reduces crops, and towns offer the potential for greater earnings. Their society is changing from low impact to high impact, the northern model. It's not even just a question of birth rate. Around the world, people live longer than they did in 1960. Combine that with increased demand on resources, and you have a second population crisis in the north. Consumers are the newest human group. Americans represent 5% of the population, but consume 35% of the world's resources. 250 million individuals have the same impact as 15 billion Africans. The only solution to a longevity crisis is to reduce the impact of each individual. The consumer's world has lost diversity. The same food and drink is sold in every country on Earth. And if we are the managers of the planet, a look at our accounting system shows we leave a lot out. Take aluminium, the stuff of sports cars, aeroplanes, and rubbish. Aluminium takes a lot of smelting. Once refined, it's recyclable. But since neither mining damage or air pollution are costed, that's deemed uneconomic. The world is ruled by gross domestic product. This means manufacturing and services, but the ex-colonies in the south also sell their resources cheap. Commodity markets tie the two different worlds together. Now, ore from India builds cars in Japan. In the 1980s, fish exports from the south doubled, bringing wild populations to the brink of collapse. The seas are emptying as conquistador and consumer combine. Brazil has exploiter and exploited in one country. Aiming for a high-impact northern economy includes damming sluggish rivers. The dams flood huge areas, silt up and generate electricity that's more expensive than solar power. But they do help to light up Rio. It's a multi-million-dollar policy with no benefit for the average Brazilian. Counting rainforest as wasteland can really help the economy. A rainforest tree stores all the nutrients in the forest and may be home to 100 different species. But it's not worth a pair of Levi's until it becomes timber and suddenly appears on the balance sheet. Japan has preserved its woodlands more effectively than Europe or the USA. But this creates a huge market for imported timber, and many nations will sell their natural assets for yen. There's a global imbalance on the balance sheet. Economists say we now have a better standard of living. It's time to look at the human animal. Even wealthy people live under stress. Poorer people may be poisoned as well. In Cubatão, Brazil, 44% of workers have lung disease. The smog in Mexico City causes 100,000 pollution-related deaths each year. The city includes 16 million people, 3 million vehicles, and 33,000 factories. The poorest people live in constant danger from disease. This slum is Dharavi in Bombay. Like medieval Florence or 19th century Manchester, it's overcrowded. Each family has 14 square meters of damp concrete floor space. The people are squatters, like 30% of all city dwellers in the south. Their shacks have electricity, but the council does not supply water. It's tapped from the mains by the people themselves. At least the water in New York is cleaner.
Personally, I get no support whatsoever from the state.
I have went through some drug problems.
IRS have got my bank account.
They send you through so much nonsense. You need this.
Got lights,
you need that.
TV, radio.
Get this.
Got hot water under
I
the
make
skin.
$10 a day. I do feel as if I've been let down by the system, okay?
In the last 2 seconds of our Earth Day, humans have changed the land, water, and atmosphere, the 3 life support systems. The range of species has declined with hunting and habitat loss. 170,000 square kilometers of tropical forests are now removed each year, and a total of 10% of their marine equivalent, coral reefs, have been destroyed. Human constructions have replaced diverse broadleaf woodlands in Europe and America. Around the world, wetlands have been drained for harbors or agriculture. Meanwhile, deserts expand at 60,000 square kilometers per year. There are millions of new animals, but they live with us on our terms, or on theirs. Escaped cats have destroyed whole seabird colonies in Antarctica. Changes to the physical Earth are much more important. Billions of gallons of water drive the agricultural systems of California's San Joaquin Valley. It travels 200 kilometers to improve the productivity of walnuts, cotton, or melons. So much water is used that the traces of salt within it build up to dangerous levels. Now the soil is collapsing and the trees are dying. The more water that's sprayed, the worse the problem, until the land is poisoned. In California, it's the presence of trees that destroys the soil. For most of the world, tree loss has the same effect. In India, fuel wood collection exposes the soil and destroys its stability. The Earth loses 24 billion tons of topsoil a year decreasing the area of arable land. Water pollution is also a major problem. Canadian beluga whales are at the top of their food chain. Accumulated chemicals make them toxic waste. The chemicals can even be passed to young whales in milk fats. So with each generation, the concentration increases towards a damaging threshold, a biological threat far greater than any harpoon. The atmosphere has protected life for 3 billion years. In the last 100 years, carbon dioxide has increased 25%, and sulfur dioxide is 15 times higher. Organic chlorine is unpicking the protective ozone layer, the Earth's spacesuit, and will for at least another 30 years. The astronaut is the pinnacle of human ingenuity, a combination of conquistador and mechanic funded by consumers with natural laws left behind. In space, it's midnight. The new day needs a new approach. The 21st century attitude creates opportunities to change human impact, combining technology and human biology in a positive way. Some things are unavoidable. Ozone loss and the greenhouse effect will reduce the global carrying capacity. Changes to the ocean currents will cause flooding in densely populated areas of Asia. Famine will strike Africa as population growth hits the wall of drought and soil erosion. But even now, the problems are being confronted. In the south, the target is population. The incentive for leveling the growth curve is an improved quality of life with fewer children. This song charts a Gambian village's history with a new verse for each birth. Reducing the desired family size from 7 to 3 means better child health, not just economic growth. The benefits for the village are obvious, and the song now celebrates health and security, not numbers. Life in Dharavi improved once the squatters gained some autonomy. A self-help cooperative builds apartments. The toilets are still shared, but that's the way to keep them clean. They fought the council for higher ceilings, to allow a sleeping gallery for children, and to lift life an inch above abject poverty. Human solutions can be bolstered by advances in technology. In the 1990s, energy wastage is a major problem, but it's easier to solve than reducing pollution at the power station. Efficiency can bring emissions down to counter the worldwide increase in demand and open new markets. Edison's light bulbs had hardly changed in over 100 years. But with microfluorescent and radio light bulbs, electric light became efficient. With fiber optics, it became the center of communication technology.
Computer, call Sarah.
Dialing.
Fiber optic cables can carry 300,000 digital quality calls simultaneously.
Oh, hi, it's you.
Yeah, can you confirm payment of account number
Using
4?
networks reduces the need to commute, and mass transport makes travel cleaner, even in Los Angeles. But a metro that has to wait at traffic lights will never replace the convenience of a car. Given free rein, it can deliver. Cutting travel time and keeping cars in the suburbs balances the essential journeys. But mass transport has to be frequent and accessible. In 1992, the Tokyo Tube delivered 2.5 billion passengers. At Shinjuku Station, there's a train every 2 minutes at peak time. And it's all over in 2 hours. In Japan, long-distance travel is cheaper and faster by train than by car. Road tolls penalize single occupants. Los Angeles struggles to keep its mighty freeways clear by encouragement with carpools and bus lanes. They're the only way to avoid the jams. In 2003, the gasoline engine will phase out. Emissions from new cars have to be 10% of the current level. Enter the hybrid electric car. This is the 1992 prototype. With hydroelectric generation, it's a water-powered car. Under 30 miles per hour, it uses the electric drive. Over 30, a combustion engine steps up the power. Acceleration stays electric, and emissions stay low. There are purer fuels than petrol. Hydrogen is the cleanest. It produces water when it burns, but it's highly explosive. Mazda cars use a special rotary engine to harness the explosions. In the fuel tank, the gas bonds chemically with a metal oxide. It simply won't explode until warm water releases it into the engine. Changing the trend of car design from speed to efficiency began in Japan. Since the 1950s, microcars attracted tax incentives from the government. As the designs evolved, they insisted on cleaner emissions or greater safety. The manufacturers argued for larger engines, from 360cc to 550 to 660, driving stronger bodies. A compromise created a market for efficient cars, supported by government subsidy and beautifully designed. '21st century technology can really reduce human impact on the atmosphere. The industrial balance is also changing. In the 1980s, global military spending reached $1,000 billion a year and took almost a third of all research and development funds. As the 20th century death toll reached 110 million, the picture began to change. Dismantling the military started with the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, bringing the most dangerous weapons to a level of deterrence without the threat of global destruction. Achieving the peace dividend means subsidizing new production and refocusing research. It's a case of taking a different option and moving research and development into use and waste. Recycling is second nature to poor people. Dharavi has a plastics recycling industry. But manufacturers could also be responsible for disposal. Plastic recycling cuts waste. Aluminium recycling uses 5% of the energy of normal production. Steel recycling creates 85% less air pollution than steel making. There's work inside societies hit by unemployment, funded by reducing the use of imported raw materials. A different philosophy applies to plantation crops, tobacco, coffee, and cocoa. Do we need to give them up?
You know, I used to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, but one day I just decided that I definitely needed to give it up, so I did.
It's not that easy, though. I mean, I have a tremendous love for candy. Chocolate is not easy to give up. I have to have it at least.
Not just chocolate, though, Peter. It's sugars and everything. Donuts, cakes, I have to have everything.
Well, I can't give up coffee. I mean, I have like a cup in the morning and then another one, and then by the middle of the day, you're shaking. And
like my big downfall, you know, is like fast food. I get home from work and you're tired, and why do you want to cook when you can get a nice, big, juicy pizza?
The 21st century citizens value water. In 1992, each Briton produced 40 gallons of polluted water a day, and sewage was dumped into the sea. Now, the waste can be collected, treated, and freeze-dried. The water is clean. The solids produce a useful, safe fertilizer. Industrial pollution requires a different approach. New planning laws that dictate that outfalls must be upstream of inlets. That way, a factory dumping pollutants gets a polluted supply, an incentive to clean up. It's part of a new approach that makes water protection biological, not bureaucratic. Water conservation is the basis of new agriculture. Requirements are measured and delivered by drip irrigation, with just 5% evaporation loss. The most sophisticated drip irrigation systems are completely underground. Only their effect can be seen. In India, water conservation has very simple rules. Prevent rainfall runoff by planting sisal or digging catch pits. Prevent soil erosion by lining gullies with rocks. These retain the topsoil and silt, and the crops increase.
ಒಂದು ಎಕರೆಗೆ 7 ಕ್ವಿಂಟಾಲ್ ಕಡಲೆಕಾಯಿ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ.
ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ 600-700 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಿಂಟಾಲ್ ಕಡಲೆಕಾಯಿ ಮಾರಾಟ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಒಂದು ಎಕರೆಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು 2,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ 3,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕುತ್ತೆ.
This scheme uses plants from a government nursery, but is run by the villagers.
ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ 100 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಅವ್ರು ಕಟ್ಟಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು. ನಮ್ಮ ಕಬ್ಬಾಳ್ನಾಲೆ ಅವರು 300 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಕೊಟ್ಟರು. ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇರಿ ನಾವು 10,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಬ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಹಾಕಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಸಿ
ಅಕ್ಕಪಕ್ಕ ಹಳ್ಳಿಗಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಕೂಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಜೀವನ ಸಾಗಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ಭಾರಿ ಕಷ್ಟ ಇತ್ತು. ಇವತ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಈ ಕಬ್ಬಾಳ್ನಾಲೆ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಯೋಜನೆಯವ್ರು ಬಂದ ಮೇಲೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕೈ ತುಂಬ ಯಾವುದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅನುಕೂಲವಾಗಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. 10-12 ವರ್ಷದವರೆಗೂ ಇದ್ದಾರೇನೆ, ಆದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೂ ಸಣ್ಣ ಮಕ್ಕಳುಗಳು ಬೇಜಾನವೆ.
Here in Gandhigrama, improving crop yields reduces human impact. Preserving the Earth's variety of species, its biodiversity, also needs a new approach. Rhinos are an extreme case. Between 1970 and 1990, 85% of the population was poached for horn. Some of the survivors live in an unreal world. They're not extinct, but they're also not viable. They live in the wild, but they are imprisoned overnight. Golden lion tamarins are Brazil's equivalent. The population of 450 includes zoo-bred animals that wear radio collars and have scientists in attendance. Despite intense human population pressure, they're technically surviving. It's now recognized that biodiversity is in human hands, and harvesting can provide better protection for whole habitats than building a wall around one species. Belém Market in the Brazilian rainforest shows the fruits of diversity. Medicines as well as foods. Collecting Brazil nuts can earn as much as logging without the damage. It's the variety of plant and animal genes that is the key to biodiversity. They're the planet's last untapped resource. Biotechnology aims to develop new crops by decoding and manufacturing genes collected from the wild. Peasant farmers meet a multi-billion-dollar business head-on. It's a classic case for the 21st century approach. Without a mutual stewardship of these resources, it could be disastrous. The South has a new agriculture. An Indian areca garden is a good example. Like a rainforest, it has layers. A ground cover of cardamom and pineapple, a middle story of banana, and a canopy of areca palms with black pepper creepers. The garden is on common land, and the villagers benefit from the cash crops and the other produce. Even the husks provide enough fuel for the house. In fact, energy use is the classic example of 21st century thinking: technology, tradition, and low impact. In India, some villages have collected leaves and dead wood from protected forests for centuries, without any felling. In others, fast-growing imported species, acacias and eucalyptus, are grown to be harvested as fuel. The leaves are left to protect and fertilize the soil. The wood chips are burnt in a locally built gasifier. The gas given off drives a hybrid diesel or gas generator. In Britain, the trees are willows. They grow to 4 meters in 18 months. This is a 21st century, low-impact energy source. As it has grown, this wood has sucked carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. When it burns, the gas returns to the cycle, but with the coppice still thriving, this doesn't increase the carbon pollution. Each hectare is the energy equivalent of 4.5 tons of coal. Natural energy is also easier to tap with new technology. The Reims tidal barrage in France started generating clean electricity in 1966. A tidal fall of 13 meters is enough to produce 600 million kilowatt hours of electricity a year. Energy costing that includes nuclear waste disposal and coal desulfurization makes this cheap electricity. In Japan, a prototype wave power station was built into the Sakata breakwater. Air is compressed in the hollow sections of what could be a complete power station and fed through an air turbine to produce a constant current. Conventional wind turbines cover the hillside at Tehachapi, California. There are 5,137 turbines placed on the wind contours on both slopes of the hill. In 1992, Tehachapi produced 1.1 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, 25% of the total wind power for the United States. The biggest turbines can generate 250 kilowatts. These are a new form of heavy engineering, built in old shipyards. Harnessing sunlight is the purest, most biological form of electricity generation. These mirror arrays focus sunlight onto a matte black oil-filled tube with the flow controlled by computer.
Brett, your 2-8 north field's 100% in the sun.
Okay, we might have to adjust the flows here a little bit if that sun gets a little more intense.
10-4.
The oil goes into the field at 50 Celsius and comes back at 390 to superheat steam in a turbine.
Go ahead. Yeah, can you take that Myronell and check out that storage tank, please?
10-4.
These fields can generate 45 megawatts in an hour. In a year, the site produces 100 million kilowatt hours of electricity. It needs minimal maintenance and is pollution-free, which reduces the cost per unit dramatically. With the power plants in place, upgrading the generating system is simple. The next step is photovoltaic. The photovoltaic solar panel is the nearest thing to a man-made leaf. When light falls on a thin semiconductor wafer, it excites electrons that can move through the crystal structure to generate electricity. Panels can be mass-produced using cheap, off-grade silicon. But in the south, maintenance is difficult, and more appropriate technology is needed. Suganahali village has its own electricity to provide lighting and clean water and reduce fuel wood collection. Their generator is more reliable than grid electricity and cheaper because the fuel is cow dung. Each family contributes and has an account. Rotting dung gives off methane, collected in 7,000-litre gas holders, which, like the rest of the plant, are made locally using village labour. The gas replaces diesel in a hybrid generator. The slurry is still excellent fertilizer. If wanted, it's returned to the families. This is biological solar power. Chlorophyll converts light energy into cellulose. Bacteria in the cow's stomach break it down to produce meat, milk, fertilizer, and electricity. Moving human cultures towards the 21st century attitude isn't difficult. It simply requires a diverse human approach. Fortunately, increasing choice and valuing humans stimulates new markets and technologies. Throughout the late 20th century, environmentalists called for individual action, but history is shaped by people in power.
Mr. Major on his soapbox at a cricket ground struck out again in the centrepiece of the
Around the world, governments already have and regularly use the mechanisms to rebalance their economies.
Boris Yeltsin's raw political instinct was captured.
Combining the dynamic forces of biology and human ingenuity into a new attitude, we can change the world.
The price of doing the same old thing is far higher than the price of change.
There's an edited transcript available of the programme. For a copy, please send a cheque for £2, payable to BSS, to 2 Seconds to Midnight, P.O. Box 7, London W3 6XJ. And the June issue of the BBC Wildlife magazine reviews 10 environmental projects and considers the future implication of these initiatives.